State of the Texans post week 5 last week. Everybody was optimistic. What has changed and what's the biggest problem for the Houston Texans? We'll get into that. We'll hear from DeMeco Ryans in the locker room.
Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too.
Week 5 outlook here in the locker room. Number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central on Sports Radio 610. Can actually see me on Twitch and YouTube on Sports Radio 610 as well. It is Reaction Monday, Overreaction Monday, however you want to look at it. And it's not as exciting as it's been the last 2 weeks. Texans take an L at the hands of the Atlanta Falcons. They fall to 2-3 on the season. Two teams in the AFC South are 2-3. Three are 3-2. The overall outlook in the NFL. 15 teams are above 500, 15 are below 500, and 2 are at 2-2. So that parity, all that we always hear about, it's in full effect, and the Texans are one of the teams that are below the whatever thing. Right off the top, CJ needs to be traded if the Texans don't like what you are doing. Leave. Texans media and fans don't appreciate you. Pray on it. Mr. Chico, man, you're banned for life. That's not even like not sitting here trying to troll. This is a Texans fan community or a non-Texans fan community. I'm not, if you need to go troll, go find you some attention or something like that somewhere else. I'm just sitting your goofy ass Facebook or Twitter page. It is the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. The number one question facing the Texans, I'm actually going to drop a video about this tomorrow. I'm going to record it in the morning or maybe even after this, and I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it. What are they going to do in order to be able to run the ball? Right now, they're averaging 3 yards per carry, which is tied for last. They're 27th in the league in rushing. Dameon Pierce is averaging 2.9 yards per carry. To put that in perspective, Alfred Blue never averaged less than 3.1. And I think he would be – no one would really consider Alfred Blue a good running back. David Johnson never did either. David Johnson was, close to 3.5 and 4. So it's really, really bad. Is it a scheme thing? Is it a personnel thing? DeMeco Ryans is going to say something. You'll hear him in a second that might actually encourage you a little bit. But the Texans are going to need to run the ball. It's 100% something that they're going to need to do. They're going to need to run the ball. They're going to need to figure it out. Hopefully that's something they can do sooner rather than later, because asking CJ Stroud to throw all this and not being able to run the ball, you're not going to be able to win ugly like they needed to win against Atlanta, which is a typical NFL thing. You have to go on the road. You have to win ugly. We saw the Chiefs do it this week. We saw it for a while. The Shasta says Texans fans are so toxic. I'm gonna have to put you in the corner too. I don't know what that means. We don't really do generalizations there. So I'm gonna put you in time. I don't know what that means. Texans fans are so toxic. I always get a kick out of, and please put your comments in, subscribe, like, all that. I always get a kick out of the dude, like after the team loses, that feels like he needs to go online and act like he's like basically smartest guy in the room, smarter than everyone. Let me see. I saw a comment in the Loophole Facebook page, and this is just I'm always amused by this. And I'll get to some of the comments. Some of you are talking about Pierce scheme and all that type of stuff. Super Trooper, maybe so. It's just kind of a pull thing. But so I think the guy's name's Vance, and after the Texans lose, he decides to go in the Loophole's Facebook page. It's Overreaction Monday, so I don't mind. Like if you wanna voice your opinion and call out a certain portion, that's fine. Like if you're a pro Dameon Pierce guy and you want to call out non-pro Dameon Pierce guys, go ahead. If you're a Singletary needs more, whatever, blah blah blah. If you're an anti Bobby Slowik guy, whatever. Like That's the beauty of Reaction Monday. But guys like this always make me kind of laugh. And I'll read it straight from the post. This is why you don't get ahead of yourself making playoff predictions. CJ is special, but he is still a rookie, and we need to be glad he is here and give him time. All you doom and gloom guys can give it a rest. So basically, you're calling out people that were optimistic talking about playoff predictions, and then you're calling out doom and gloom guys. And then you're having like a straw man argument about CJ Stroud and then saying he's a rookie. So basically, you could have saved all the typing and you could have just said, I'm the smartest guy. Everybody else sucks. And I know everything about everything. I don't understand all that. And I actually think as far as CJ Stroud goes, I thought he played great on Sunday. It's not always going to be pretty in the NFL, especially when you're going on the road and especially when you're playing a team that's pretty much in the same tier as you. And Atlanta's in that same tier. They're trying to be a fringe or playoff team just like the Texans are, and they're in your same tier. So sometimes it's going to get ugly, especially when the secondary is depleted and you're kind of in that weird spot and you're unable to run the ball, et cetera, which we'll hear DeMeco Ryans. He kind of has perhaps the best case scenario when it comes to the inability to do that. But I thought CJ was fine. He didn't try to do too much. He had what would have been the game-winning drive had they been able to get the stop. I thought CJ was fine. So I don't really have any issue with CJ Stroud. I don't have any issue with the way that he played. I actually thought it was perfectly fine. I am ready for him to throw an interception, so I don't have to hear about that anymore. And I thought CJ did a good job of explaining, yeah, it's cool, but I probably should have thrown a pick by now. They've dropped a couple of them. I don't think he's like trying to protect the record. I think he's just playing smart ball. And I think the record is a balance of the elite way in which he's protected the ball and a couple of lucky breaks. But as soon as he throws an interception, I think it will be it'll be fine. It'll be straight. So I wasn't concerned about CJ Stroud. As far as biggest concerns, if we're still kind of resetting the game, and it's always fun to talk about the game on Monday after you talk about it right after, right? I mean, like, because when you live it and then you go live and you talk about it immediately, sometimes stuff kind of simmers a little bit. For the most part, my opinion has kind of remained the same. There hasn't been like some sort of like coming to Jesus type of moment. They need to they need to figure out what the hell the problem is running the ball. CJ was fine. I am wondering about Nico Collins. We've seen Nico Collins kind of every other week be the guy, and then it was Tank. And the big news, by the way, Tank Dell is in concussion protocol. DeMeco Ryans will talk about that in a second when we hear him. But Tank Dell's in concussion protocol. If he can't go, I think that means that we see more Mechie. I think Dalton Schultz continues to produce. The one thing about Laramie Tunsil, we can talk about the run game. The pass blocking is elite, and I think that opens up stuff for Dalton Schultz. But the Nico Collins stat, and I thought this was interesting. Texans Cap put this stat out there, and he's not one of these guys who just, throws out stats without like some substance to them. Nico Collins' press coverage rate weeks 1 through 4 was 23.1%. Versus Atlanta, it was 68.8. And you saw him kind of struggle to get off the line. So that might be, I don't want to say it's like a formula, but and Atlanta actually has some pretty underrated corners. So maybe that's not going to be the case, although New Orleans has some pretty good ones as well. But I think we're probably going to see Nico Collins getting pressed a little bit. And what is press man? Press man is when they're 3 yards or more inside you, based on the manner in which the stat was put out by Texans Cap. So that's something to keep an eye on with Nico Collins. Has there been some sort of blueprint as to how to cover him? I would keep a close eye on that. The one thing I will say, I'm a Bobby Slowick guy. I like Bobby Slowick. Cebu's asking where Noah Brown. He's actually eligible to come back this week. He went on IR after week 1. So after week 5, he'll be eligible. Who knows whether he's going to or not, how healthy he is. I don't know how he fits in when Tank's doing his thing. But if he is eligible to come back and if Tank is out, it would be a nice time for Noah Brown to come back. One thing I don't think can happen, you can't. Devin Singletary can't go a whole game without a carry. And there's people asking about Dameon Pierce as a scheme fit. I think it's valid. If you follow this channel, I've said, and I've said to Dameon Pierce himself when he's been on the show. By the way, have Texans exclusive interviews throughout the show on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610 this Thursday. We're going to get another special guest straight off the practice field. So be sure to subscribe, like, right along. I think Dameon Pierce is a 1A, 1B type of guy where you need a running back on the same level or even above that level. Is he a scheme fit? I don't know. I do think you need to look to avoid contact instead of find contact in the zone blocking scheme. I think that's pretty obvious. I do like the way that, Bobby Slowick is still willing to not completely abandon the run, but I'm not saying it's got to be 50-50. I'm not saying it's got to be 60-40, but Devin Singletary needs a carry. I mean, that's absolutely asinine. Dameon Pierce right now is 6th in the NFL in carries. He has 2 less carries than Derrick Henry, and he's averaging 2.9 yards per carry, which, as I said, is worse than David Johnson and worse than Alfred Blue. And we can sit here and we can say, well, there's no continuity with the offensive line and so on and so forth. And maybe that's true, but the offensive line sucked when David Johnson was there, and it sucked at the end of Alfred Blue, and he never averaged 2.9 yards per carry. So they got to figure that out. I like the energy in which Dameon Pierce brings. I think there is a place for that, but for him to get all those carries and Devin Singletary not get a carry, I think that's the one thing. I'm a Bobby Slowick guy, but I think that's asinine. I think that's absolutely asinine. The pitch play needs to be scrapped to Dameon Pierce. You're not the only person I've heard say that, Rock. I don't like the reverse with Tank Dell either. I'm really not really down with that either. But Devin Singletary needs a carry. Like that's absolutely outrageous. Especially last week, he was running the ball well. He threw the touchdown pass. You got to figure that out. But the $1 million question is, what can the Texans do to fix the run game? Is it an offseason thing? Are they just stuck with 2 guys who can't run block very well, and Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil? If that's the answer, then you're in trouble because you have a lot invested in those guys. Now, I don't think they're ever going to be elite run blockers, but if the answer to this question, what can the Texans do to fix the run game, is, well, right now they have 2 guys who can't run block. That's the worst thing that could possibly be the case. Best thing is there's not enough continuity on the offensive line. I don't buy that. I think there should have been at least a little bit of improvement this week from last. You had Austin Efendeculis and Christian platooning at left tackle. Okay? You had third string interior guys. All right? So I don't completely buy that, but maybe it gets a little bit better. And maybe Dameon Pierce, maybe they need to figure something out with Dameon Pierce. Maybe Dameon Pierce watches tape and says, you know what, I need to avoid contact instead of finding contact. So maybe it's something that can be taught. Maybe it's something that they can teach Dameon Pierce. Maybe. Spread it out, obviously. I mean, they're going to try to spread it out. I do think they gotta figure out what the hell to do when it comes to balancing the run and pass. The other thing is, and I think this is a Slowick thing, and I think it's something he can figure out, is I think he's got to be able to balance the aggressiveness he has at the end of first halves with how he calls games whenever it's kind of in the middle of when the game's going on. We saw the offense get kind of stagnant against Pittsburgh. Fortunately, they were able to get the 4th and 1 stop, and they never really looked back. But at the end of first halves, they've stolen points the last 3 weeks. And the tempo seems a little bit better. They seem to kind of balance stuff out. It just seems like whatever that is, I mean, I don't expect them to go no huddle. I'm not talking about like the 90s Bills run and shoot type of crap. But whatever that is, they need to find some sort of balance there and figure that type of stuff out. So we will see. The good thing from the game, and DeMeco Ryans seems relatively pleased, they did stop the run pretty well with Atlanta. I know Bijan got loose a couple of times, but I'm almost certain that they approached that game saying we need to stop the run. Didn't necessarily stop the pass. Look, I look at that as what the hell are you supposed to do when you don't have Stingley, you don't have Shaq Griffin, you don't have Tavier Thomas? What are you supposed to do? They forced 2 turnovers. You're kind of handcuffed there. You got to find a way to scratch that one, scratch and claw that one, and make it to where it doesn't even come down to that last series. But let's hear from DeMeco Ryans here on the post wrap. Then we'll get into the state of the AFC South. Appreciate everyone for coming through. It is the Locker Room, #1 source for Texans daily digital content. Let's listen to and react to head coach DeMeco Ryans on Reaction Monday after the Texans fall.
Yeah, really watching the film, really like the effort, the intensity, the physicality our guys played with, their finish. There's a lot of great things on tape to be encouraged with from our team. Just overall, it's just executing the fine details of what we're asked to do. Right, that's what it takes to win those tough games, and that's where we lack just a little bit. But we're close, we're very close, and our guys know that. We left a lot of plays out there that we could have made to flip that game in our direction. Credit to Atlanta, they did. They played tough. I think the game's flipped on 3rd down, right? They got stops on 3rd down, and we didn't get stops defensively, and that's where the game flipped for us. We have to be better there, be more dialed in and more on it, and we'll have improvement there.
Okay, that's a hell of a promise. All right, I like that, Coach.
First and second downs is towards the top in terms of carries, and he's towards the top in terms of facing loaded boxes. What do you think is the reason for that, and how do you guys overcome that?
Yeah, when it comes to the run game, I think it's collective. It's all of us. I feel like our guys, they did a great job of blocking yesterday in the run game, and as we all know, the margin for error is slim in this league. So it's tight holes or guys. There's one guy in the hole. We have to be able to make a guy miss. We have to force some missed tackles there. But I think the guys blocked it well yesterday. We just have to stay after it, right?
Oh, he said they blocked it well. Okay. I mean, that's awesome. Like, that's good. If that's true, if DeMeco and Slowick watched the tape and they said that the blocking was good, that's encouraging. Because it's much easier to either tell Dameon Pierce, hey, this is what you did wrong, use Singletary a little bit more, or God forbid in the offseason find a new running back than it is to have bad run blocking, especially with this offensive line that should be together for a long time. That's good news right there. Keep going, Coach. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Encouraged with what we did up front yesterday from a run blocking standpoint and also in pass protection. So really proud of what the O-line is doing for us. We just have to make explosives when we can. When it's there, it may be slim, but we have to make them pay.
What's up? Good news.
With Devin not getting those touches, that's more flow of the game, and us as coaches, we have to do a better job of getting Devin more opportunities. The continuity will help, but I definitely feel like that our run blocking has been there. Guys have done a much better job throughout the past couple of weeks of finishing, no matter who's in there, targeting, finishing the proper way. It's there. We're very close in the run game. We'll stay after it. It's where we want to be better. We know we can get better there, and we will show improvement there. Jalen has done a great job. Jalen, he brings definitely some instincts, playmaking ability to our defense, and the communication factor on the back end. A lot of communication and checks that have to go into play there on multiple plays, and Jalen does a really good job of communicating.
He's a good ball player, man. Like that safety duo, I like a lot. They're good ball players. They're having to do a lot without the corners, but that's a really good safety duo.
He does a really good job of flying around, being instinctive, and he always seems to find himself around the ball, and that's what I love about Jalen. just different looks for our offense. Try some different things with Tank. Just try to utilize him to his skill set, utilizing his speed, utilizing his playmaking ability. So that's why you saw Tank in the backfield on a couple plays.
Working with Jake One in the red zone motion. How is it working with him? What is it that he kind of brings as an offensive coach and that kind of role?
Yeah, with our red zone offense, I think yesterday it wasn't more so red zone; it was more of us on third down where we didn't make things happen. And that started by second down, a couple of negative runs on second down. It kind of put us behind the sticks there and forced us into a couple longer third downs than we would like. Want to be in third and manageable, and we weren't there, so it made it tougher. But overall, offense is doing really good things, right? We just have to continue to press forward, continue to be precise on our details, and we'll see points show up when that happens.
Tank's injury, how do you feel about the depth with John Mechie and David Hutchinson that you have to fill in?
Little depth wide receiver question.
For a prediction on when just how's
Aaron Wilson.
The Tank is in the protocol, and we'll see how he progresses throughout the week. Hopefully he starts to feel.
But that's something to keep an eye on. If Tank can't go, if they're just going to line up and man up Nico, someone's going to have to step up. Will it be tight end? Is it going to be Mechie? That's something to keep a close eye on.
Better. Definitely hurts, not having him out there. Tank is an explosive playmaker for us, but just really our thoughts with Tank to make sure that he gets back healthy as soon as possible.
For a few more.
How much can you take on like yesterday, not being able to kind of learn and do certain things, just learn lessons with the team. Young teams don't try to learn how to be consistent.
It's a great learning lesson yesterday, right? We were close, and we feel like we should have finished that game, but for me, it's a great teaching moment for our guys to really understand like what it takes to win games in this league. They're all the games are going to be tight. It's going to come down to one possession, right? We're going to be close. We're going to be in games, but what does it take to win games and not lose games? Are you on your job every time the ball is snapped? A lot of people look at the last plays and the last drives, but there are a lot of things that happen in those first three quarters where probably shouldn't be in that position. Right, so how dialed in are we on every play of the game? To me, every play is the play of the game, and if you don't look at it that way, and it's a mistake.
What did you learn about CJ Stroud in that run?
It was very encouraging to see CJ, young quarterback, right, not flinch. Right, last drive of the game, we needed to go down and go score. He didn't flinch, operated with, precision. Everybody was on it. The ball placement, the decision making. Right, just overall collective as offense, seeing them drive down, it was encouraging, and that's what you want to see. It was true poise from a young quarterback, and that's what it takes to play the toughest position in sports. It takes poise, and he has it. All right, thank you guys.
There you go. It's DeMeco. Confident, man. Confident, and that's really encouraging. If it truly was blocked well, then it might not be the most encouraging thing long term, but that's something where you tell Damian, hey, this is blocked well. You're going to have to make that cut, or we're going to have to go with someone else, or you're going to have to figure that out, and they'll have to adjust. So that's actually encouraging stuff from DeMeco Ryans. We'll get into the state of the AFC South in a sec. First, I want to get to some of the questions. Is it time to get Boone some touches? I'm good on that. I would say no, but who knows? Prime time. Do you think Pierce fits the scheme? I think Pierce fits the scheme as like a complimentary back. I don't think he's a guy who should be sixth in the league in carries, and I've never thought that. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I think he's a finisher, and you saw him even on the final drive, like when the defense is kind of worn out. That was where he did his best work. Because the defense gets a little bit worn out. You don't want to meet someone in the hole as much. And I thought he did a good job there. But I think you need to get a back that is maybe better than him. And, we've kind of seen, like, I know last year, like when he was on his rookie kick or whatever, there was like talk about, yeah, well, see, he's right up there with Breece Hall. Come on. Like, they're not in the same category. Like, they never have been. Like, that's not him. He's a very, very good running back that can finish plays, but he's not a guy that should be sixth in the league in carries. I think he can make a lot of plays, but that's not Dameon Pierce. And I've said to him, I think he is a complimentary starter committee guy. And the crazy thing is, DeMeco said he wanted it to be a committee too. He said that in the offseason. And I thought that was kind of validation for my thought. Well, you know what? That ain't a committee when the other guy that just had a pretty good game and is averaging, I think, damn near a yard more per carry doesn't touch the rock. That's not an effing committee. That's not a committee. So let's go back and revisit that. Slowick, DeMeco, and let's make it a committee. Let's balance it out to where Dameon Pierce is kicking guys' asses at the end of games, and you're mixing stuff up. That's what I would do. Don't run the ball at Fant and Shaq. I don't know. I can't even. I know they're better inside tackles than out. Ja'Cory says, I didn't understand why we kept running towards Fant. That couldn't seal the edge. Left tackle and Titus were on the left side, and Devin Bush was there the majority of the game. By Fant. Okay. Sure. I'll take your word for that. Run the ball to your two highest paid linemen. They're not good run blockers. Titus Howard had the worst run blocking grade yesterday, and Laramie Tunsil, I think, was third. So yeah, I don't know. That would make sense. I just don't know if that's the case or not. But in a perfect world, it makes sense. And DeMeco says they blocked well. So there you go. Zadis says the mistakes made by the team last week were mainly the mistakes of an inexperienced team. No reason for Houston not to adjust a bit more before a similar team in the Saints. Yeah, I think that's fair. Although I think the Saints they're not a bad football team, but I don't think they have as good of weapons as Atlanta does, if that makes sense. And I know there was some underachieving with Drake London and Pitts and some of the other guys. I think New Orleans is a really, really good defense, but I know Kamara is still there. I know they got Michael Thomas. Olave is awesome. He's probably one of the best receivers the Texans will face this early on. But outside of Olave, and I think you kind of put Nelson on him, hopefully you get some corners back. But I'm with you. I think they're in the same tier. But I actually think, as far as like where the Texans are vulnerable, where it kind of seems to be like in that linebacker intermediate defensive range, I don't think New Orleans can hurt you as bad. I don't think their offense is as good. Calvin says DeMeco should have kept his word and been more aggressive on that first series. I think that would have made them win the game. I assume you're talking about kicking the field goal on 4th and 1. I actually had no issue with that. I actually thought it was weird that they went for it in their own territory against Baltimore. I don't know. I think keep the word is a little bit dramatic. I think it's just more of a feel out. I think against Baltimore, they probably thought they needed a lot of points, and against Atlanta, they thought they could just scratch and claw, and we're going to have to settle for field goals 3 times after that. Like if you would have given them a crystal ball and you would have told DeMeco, hey, you guys aren't going to be able to convert on 3rd down, and you are going to have to the first 4 scores that you have are going to be field goals. Maybe they would have thought different, but I think in that situation, they just thought that Desmond Ridder sucked. And he had up to that point, and that they would be able to get away with the field goal. But I get what you're saying. He did say that, and that wasn't aggressive to say the very least. I had no issue with it personally. I said it at the time, but I can understand where you would be saying that. Zadis Q says, can we also acknowledge ATL's run defense is genuinely solid? They're 15th in the league in rushing yards per game, and I think they're 12th in yards per carry. So I genuinely solid, like top half of the league, if you say so. Sure, if that's what you can say that. I'm not going to say that, but you can genuinely say that. The Shasta says, I think everybody in the AFC South is going back to 3-3 this week. Shasta, I think you might need to look at the schedule. Baltimore faces Tennessee, and Tennessee's at 2-3. So I don't know if you think that the Titans are going to beat Baltimore. And the Jags and Colts actually play each other. So that's impossible. They're both 3-2, and they play each other. So, yeah, interesting thought, but not possible, to say the very least. Sorry to break that to you. Cannot happen. Speaking of the AFC South, let's get into the state. of the AFC South. Right now, you have two teams that are 3-2, the Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville coming off that loss to the Texans, two very impressive wins. They handled this Atlanta team that we just saw yesterday pretty easily, and then they beat Buffalo. And Buffalo is kind of one of those Jekyll and Hyde teams. You look at them as a top-tier team that's going to be there late in the season. Sometimes they put on a show and they beat Miami, and then other times they kind of lay an egg, and you don't know what to expect from them. But Jacksonville has had a nice recovery since losing to the Texans. Indianapolis going to be without Anthony Richardson for a while. It depends how you kind of look at that. Gardner Minshew, when he takes the most snaps, is actually 3-0. When Anthony Richardson doesn't take the most snaps, Indianapolis is 3-0. When he does, they're 0-2. So there is that. The highlights, like when you go on X or Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it, and you see the highlights of Anthony Richardson, you'll see people saying, look at this. This is amazing. He had a couple of those plays yesterday, and then I was watching the game a little bit. There was a play where they were throwing a screen. He threw it backwards out of bounds for a loss of, I think, 11 or 12 yards. So it's kind of up and down. Gardner Minshew knows that system. He knows that formula. They just locked up Jonathan Taylor. Zach Moss can run the ball. So Indianapolis, they're kind of a factor. It'll be interesting to see how them and Jacksonville face off, especially with Jacksonville getting back from London. So those are the 3-2 teams. 2-3. The Texans looking to get to 3-3 against the Saints team that is beatable. Texans open as, I think, a 2-point underdog, 2.5, depending on where you place your wagers. Winnable. Good defense, though. And they do have some guys that can beat you, especially if this secondary is still going to be depleted. Practice report this week's going to be really interesting. Keep an eye on Shaq Griffin and keep an eye on Tavier Thomas. Both practiced last week, but were scratched. So we will have to check that out. And then the Tennessee Titans, they're annoying. They're one of those like scrappy ass squads. It's not going to go anywhere, but they got a limited ceiling. So the AFC South is still wide open. The Texans are going to have to figure out how to run the ball. If you listen to DeMeco Ryans, you like what he says. He says that they blocked well. So maybe that's a coaching thing. Maybe that's get someone else in there. It will be really, really interesting to see how this plays out. Backwards out of bounds pass. How does that even happen? He was like going back for a screen and then he spun around. So he faked the pass and then he just literally just flung it around to the back. It was a wild play by Anthony Richardson. Also kind of has some struggle protecting himself. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Gonna go in depth on this run issue. Might record that in a second, actually. But look for it to drop tomorrow at noon. Be sure to download the Odyssey app or just go on Twitch and YouTube. The show is on those from 10 to 2 Central. So it'll be really, really fun. And let's be honest, sometimes you're going to lose games on the road. The Texans are in the week-to-week league right now. There's some disappointment. There's some excitement. There's reason for optimism. There's reason for concern. But it is a big boy football squad. Interest is increasing. And if you're trying to follow the Texans closer than maybe you've needed to the last few years, I know there's still the diehards here. But be sure to subscribe, like, ride along. This is the best place to get the pulse of what's going on with the Texans. Appreciate you for coming through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Have a good weekend. On to week 6.
Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localized every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days.